to Leading AI's presentation on AI strategy for schools. So I sincerely believe that AI will transform education, not only through delivering personalisation, that's enabling every student, every pupil to receive their content for the curriculum content that they want in their way, lowering reading ages, translating, making examples personal, meeting neurodiversity needs. There's a whole range of things that AI can already do in that space, but it can also tackle the toil. 50% of the time that teachers spend is not in the classroom. A lot of that is in doing administration, and it's the stuff that makes people want to leave teaching. So helping tackle toil can tackle the recruitment crisis, make teachers' jobs better and allow them more time to focus on what really matters. And then the promise of AI with big data allows it to unlock new insights that were never previously viewable. 80% of organisational data is stored in documents, unstructured data, as we call that in AI. With generative AI, you can get into that and find things that were never really possible at a scale that is unimaginable. And in that allows us to unlock those insights and make education better for everybody. It's a challenging time, though, in 2025. And this slide really speaks to what we believe as a school leader you should be thinking about, and hopefully it's going to be helpful for you. So we always say that you should start with the problem, with the challenge, not with the AI. Shiny AI is very exciting. I can get as excited about it as anybody, but it's really important to understand that you want to solve the challenges rather than just use AI. However, it's really difficult to know what challenges can be solved by AI without knowing a bit about AI itself. So in this presentation, I'm going to give you a bit of a flavour into that so that it helps you understand those limitations, the risks and the potential. And then the other part of the role is about setting strategy, thinking about where your organisation is up for its AI journey. Does it want to be AI first, or perhaps you want to wait and see until things are a bit more settled? That's a challenge, as we'll see. And then setting really your roadmap, getting on with it, starting the journey or continuing your journey. Importantly, you've done safely with guardrails to ensure that staff know what they should be doing, and that you are conscious and very clear of where your data is being managed in this wonderful AI infrastructure, this new world. Getting straight to it, there's a bit, I'm not going to read every word on this slide, but there's some headlines I can share with you about where AI, generative AI really is what I'm talking about, where its strengths are, what it struggles with, and the things you absolutely need to take into account. So in strengths, I'm sure most of you will have seen or played with some of the AI tools, and you can see where you get time savings immediately. Translation and transformation of text in various ways enables personalization, enables so much potential in just making things more accessible for people. But interestingly, some of the wider use cases now, surveys. I'm always struck by, we create surveys, don't we, with the Likert scale, because that strongly agree, strongly disagree, or the 1 to 5, 1 to 10, because we can't as humans read textual responses en masse and sensibly get views from it. So we've created this scale to help create a number around how someone feels or somebody's feedback. With AI, with generative AI, you don't need to do that. You can take text, as much of it as you want to, and ask the AI tools to summarize what are the 5 key bits of feedback I should take from this parent survey, from this student survey, etc. It starts to unlock new potential. It certainly unlocks the ability to more quickly get at those summaries, those insights. And of course, you can use AI in there to say, well, tell me what older folk thought. Tell me what our maths teachers thought. And you can keep asking questions and chat with that data to get some real insights. RAG AI, retrieval augmented generation. I'm going to talk a bit more about that in a moment, because it is the part of AI I think school leaders, all organisations need to know about. It enables you to train an AI on your information, and that changes everything, as you'll see shortly. In limitations, good data. Data is essential for driving great AI outputs. Lots of schools have lots of data. The trick is to make sure that that data has some sort of join in it. So the common identifier is really what we're looking at here, which is usually a pupil number. That enables you to find that pupil in the demographic information database and in their attendance database and in your behaviour or safeguarding database. The same reference, if the same reference is used, that really helps things along. There's lots more to data, and we'll touch on some of that as we go through this presentation. The next point on long inputs make LLMs, large language models, lazy. LLMs are a bit like humans. It's quite funny really in some ways, because the neural network that drives an LLM is a lot like a human brain, or at least it's quite modelled similarly. And interestingly, when you give an LLM a very long piece of text, it remembers the beginning and the end and drops things out in the middle and gets a bit lazy, just like perhaps we do. I'm sure nobody listening to this would do that, but it's a fascinating sort of similarity. So if you want to use if you want to get sort of really deep analysis or really good summaries, it is always better to break up big sets of data. That changes all the time. Google Gemini have 1 million token context window, so you could in theory put in, it's not quite words, tokens aren't quite words, but it'd probably get you 700,000 or 800,000 words. That's pretty huge, but it still won't read all of them every time, so worth keeping that in mind. Generative AI tends not to be diligent, or it's not deterministic. It takes summaries. It's great at summarizing. It's great at thematic answers. You have to be slightly careful with it if you're saying, in this example, give me all the next review dates of everything in this library. It will give you those, but not all of them quite often, so worth knowing that. And PICNIC, so the biggest limitation of all is probably this. PICNIC is an acronym that says problem in chair, not in computer. So it's really about us understanding how to work with large language models and AI, how to get better at prompting, and improving and sharing and following best practice in that space. When we come to risks, the biggest thing I always say to everybody is about data privacy, and making sure you know where the data is being processed. Where is the AI storing data? Where is it doing the data processing? It's really, really key. I'm seeing a lot of AI tools that people are using. They talk about shadow AI. Shadow AI is the name for when someone's using AI on their phone or laptop with your data, with your school's data, student data potentially, but it's not an official AI tool that the school has allowed. And that's great in lots of ways. I love that people are bringing their own curiosity and their own sort of discoveries to work. But if you are sharing school data in models where the data is not private or being processed in the US, then you have a big problem. So it's really important to know that. And I think part of AI strategy is certainly about setting your guardrails for what is appropriate, what you will allow and what you won't. And I think probably having a school model that is acceptable is really the safest way through that. But that also then, final bullet on risks, causes a new budget line, because these things aren't free. And there's a phrase, isn't there, that if the product is free, then you are the product. And it's your data that they want, that the tool wants. So I think being really cautious about where the data is, and potentially thinking about a model a prescribed model that is safe and secure. Bias. I want to talk about bias and we might come back to talk about trust and explainability. So what's going on this slide? I used exactly this prompt and I put it into one, I can't remember which model it was now, and as you can see there I have got a photo style image of at least 10 watches. It's certainly done that part. On a table, yes, tick, displaying the time 7:30. Well, that is a bit peculiar, isn't it? Some of them weirdly have 7:30 on, but all of them have the hands at 10:10. Hold that thought, and here is another prompt, and in fact what I'm showing here is what the AI said to me, its answer after I prompted, saying that it's going to generate a realistic image of 3 left-handed people sitting at a desk, all clearly using their left hand to write. Well, let's look at that. No, they're not, are they? And in this example, you can keep asking. You can say, they're not left-handed. You've given me right-handed writers. And it will say, my apologies, you're quite right. Let me do it again. And it will continually give you right-handed people. It's seemingly unable to do it. And the reason is bias. Large language models are trained on masses of data, and they are working really as predictive text, very clever predictive text models. And the large language models are giving you what they have seen, what they think you want, despite you telling it quite specifically in this case that I wanted left-handed. It is basically ignoring me and saying, I'm sure you don't want that. And with the watches, going briefly back to that one, this is advertisers. So yet another thing we can blame advertisers for if you want. But the watches are nearly always displayed with their hands at 10:10. Apparently symmetry, it shows the logos, etc. But same point, this is what LLMs have seen many of, and they therefore find it very difficult to do anything other than show you what they've seen nearly all of. However, despite those bits of bias, and we do need to keep that in mind in all of AI use, because the pictures, the photographs, it's quite easy to see. When the AI is writing text for you and it's that convincing voice that it uses, persuasive arguments, it's much harder to spot when bias is coming into there. In fact, in our tools, we have a bias check built in. You can select to look at any output and just check it for bias against some of the key criteria. This quote, though, is interesting, isn't it? And who knows? I mean, McKinsey you can have your own view, but they sort of know what they're talking about, and there'll be more progress in the next 10 years, and that's from 2021, so halfway through that nearly now. The point really I want to make here is today's AI is the worst AI we will have. So even though there's bias in there and other things, that will get worked on, I am sure. If it can't do it today, it probably will be able to do it soon. So there's no reason to wait, is I guess my point at this point is it is catching up, it is getting better. The faster we can get on the journey and at least prepare, the more effective we can be as AI becomes more and more ubiquitous. So what should you do? So AI strategy, and a lot of the conversations I'm having at the moment, I think organisations are in this place of needing to think about what is your strategy? Most organisations I talk to, they might have an AI policy in place. They are probably experimenting with some AI, although that often looks like saying, well, we've got Copilot, or there's ChatGPT, off you go. Now is the time when people are starting to think, how do I transform my business? How do I embrace AI within my business in order to really make sure I stay ahead and indeed grow and not become a sort of blockbuster or Nokia of the future? I quite like this as a think piece about what AI kind of enables, really, and then we'll get more into the granular look at strategy. But this looks at this is from Gartner, and Gartner are a global research firm, very well regarded, and I love their stuff because they seem, at least to me, to be the most objective. They're not really trying to sell you a particular product, so they don't really care. They're not sort of got a horse in the race on that. So their job is to know what everybody is doing and then share that. So their view is that this is the kind of pattern of that AI enables and is happening right now, and I love it. So stage one, defend. Defend is all about enabling your staff really with some of the general AI tools. And I agree. I think if you're not doing this as an employer, you're doing a disservice to your staff, firstly, in my view. We have a responsibility to improve the skills of our staff and help them. So I think encouraging use and sharing and training in this stuff is important. I also think from a more from an organisational defence perspective, if you are not using AI tools and allowing AI tools for some of your basic tasks, I think you're going to start to struggle to recruit. If you're a teacher and you've got two choices and one has AI, and indeed if you already come from a place where you're using AI and then you're asked to go back to the other one that doesn't use AI, I think this is going to become a bigger problem soon. The middle part of this is extend. This is really where we play at Leading AI. This is about taking workflow processes and bringing AI to them so that you can make them better, more consistent, faster, and enable your staff, your colleagues in your organisation to spend their time on the right stuff, the stuff that matters, time with students, time thinking, time with parents, not time doing administration. And then the final part of this 3 pillars is I love the upend side of things, and the story that goes with this from the Gartner lady on stage. She said, "Do you know how many blockbusters there were before Netflix?" And her answer was there were 10,000. No idea what sort of jurisdiction, whether that was global or anyway, but there were 10,000. Her next question was how many of those invented Netflix? And of course, none of them did. Netflix came out and disrupted that market completely, upended that market. I love this. This is the hardest area to think about, but it's upending is the most fascinating. What does the future of education and schools look like 10 years from now, when AI might be in use all over the place? 20 years from now, who knows? But it's a wonderful conversation, perhaps one for over a drink later. So what should you do in your organisation to start thinking about strategy? Well, JISC have a view that this is the four sort of points to an AI strategy for you to think about, and we really like this. I think this does cover off the headlines, and I've got an addition to add to this later on, which I think is important to consider. This takes you down, and I'll flick to the next slide, which is a bit more granular. So skills, knowledge and culture, this is absolutely essential. What we are seeing in our customers where they really are adopting AI and making good use of it, making quite a lot of time savings and return on that investment, is where they are building the skills of their staff. Change management is important, getting people on board. And interestingly, what we see, just like my 20 years of consulting before this, is if you give people AI and say, look, there's Copilot, there's a layer of colleagues who will grab that and they will spend time on it. They will spend their evenings and weekends understanding it and seeing how it can help them in their work. There is another layer of colleagues who will not. And they, for reasons that might be because of fear, might be because of lack of understanding, or might just be they don't have time, they're not going to use it and improve in that way. It needs to be managed like you would with most other change management programs. And there's a range of things. And thinking about students as well in that mix, what should they know? How, our view is that embedding within curriculum is a useful thing, talking about a little bit about AI's place in the future of work. I think it's very difficult to teach any AI itself to students, because who knows, by the time they finish school, it's probably all changed again. So whether there's any use in really specifically getting into prompting or anything with students, I don't know. I think that's a challenging one, but I think talking about it and its disruptive capability, and what it might mean for particular subjects in the future is important. In technology, this is thinking about the tools that you have available. And JISC set out this 4 layers really of things to think about. Lots of tools are bringing AI to them or already have it embedded now. So looking at that capability, those things sometimes are paid for extras, sometimes they're just included, but definitely worth looking into there. I've touched on already the kind of productivity, the defend tools, if you like. So those are the kind of obvious ones: Copilot, Gemini, OpenAI. Task specific, this is a bit more in the world that we play in. This is defining things that are quite specialist and unique. So what workflows do you do a lot of that which require a lot of data and which you could potentially bring AI to solve? That's really fascinating. We'll come back to it. And then of course they're just the big cloud platforms that we're probably familiar with. Governance is the third pillar. This is as much about policies as it is about actually governing data in particular. So you need guardrails, you need your policies. Interestingly, JISC's view is that you don't need an AI policy. What you need to do, you've already got the policies that cover this. You've got data protection policies, you've got IT use policies or digital, and you've probably got academic policies. Those are where your AI guardrails, your AI rules should exist. I agree, but I think right now is the time. AI is so new that expecting staff to find it within those policies might be a stretch. Having an AI policy that overlays that, or maybe not even a policy, maybe standards, something that goes over that to make it a bit clearer, might be sensible now. And then obviously the guidance that goes with that. This is all underpinned by probably the most important part of all of it, which is the data and getting data maturity. I'll give you a little piece on that now, because it's really important to start the journey on this. I talk to a lot of schools and colleges and they will say that they are data rich, and that is true. They have lots of databases, lots of data capture points and lots of data. That is useful, as we touched on earlier, if you can join it together. If you can see the same student in all of the different data sets, for example, you've got something that's quite useful. So understanding that the data assets, what you're collecting and how it kind of weaves through your systems is important. And the spoiler alert as on here is it's quite difficult to start with data and get it right. For example, if you want to do predictive analytics, which is everybody's dream, identifying those students and the intervention strategies you can take in order to improve things and identify them early, that use case determines the data that's needed. And you might not do it the other way around. If you sat and looked at the data and tried to get that sorted, you might find you're missing some things that you really need later. I know of one academy trust that was looking at the impact of bad weather on student attendance. So you really only know that you need weather data once you decide that that's the thing you want to look at. It's unlikely that you're going to start out your data review and decide that you need to capture weather data, for example. And maybe you don't need to capture it anyway because it exists somewhere else. Storage, so where is the data? And this is really interesting because we have heard a lot about data warehouses and data lakes of late. The dataverse is a new phrase, at least for me, which is more speaking about having data in lots of different places. But as long as you know where they are and they're governed, that kind of is fine, frankly. So, but knowing where it is important, how you access it. And then governance of your data, and there's a lot in this, but that is consistent data labels really help. If you want AI to look at data and describe it to you, it needs to know what it is. Otherwise, Gen AI will start guessing. So the best thing you can do is give all of your data consistency in the data labels that you give it, and the rest of the things there you can see. And consent is important in this as well. There's a live discussion going on in Leading AI right now about consent requirements for student data is it okay to rely on the learner agreement that would have been signed, or the parent home learner agreement that would have been signed, which will have something about data? Or do you need to go further to be really clear that if you're using student data in AI models, you need to be clear about that as well? So all kinds of things to think about. Let's talk briefly about some of the tools, some of the things that it might be worth keeping in mind as you're thinking about your roadmap of your strategy. So we think about AI in 3 buckets for education, and you can kind of cut these different ways. But there's AI that's directly for students. Interestingly, probably the most well known in the UK sector at least is Century, previously Century Tech. This is a sort of personal AI tutor, if you like, that you as a parent or school, you can set the awarding body and curriculum topics, and then the Century will then deliver training, learning to students, give them quizzes and monitors how they're doing compared to their huge benchmark database, and helps to know what students' strengths really are and what their weaknesses are, and will take them through the learning journey. There's a whole bunch of other things in here I could talk about. The hyper-personalisation, I think, is the really interesting area for education. This is the real transformative opportunity, making sure that students can understand the content because it can be written in a way that they do understand and that they're able to understand, as well as neurodiversity, that we can be much better at meeting the needs of neurodiverse and special educational needs that go with that. I'll jump to the middle rather than labelling every point, but teachers, there's huge amounts on. I'm sure you will have seen lesson planning tools and lots of curriculum material creation that you can do. Assessment, I think, is very interesting. AI is tremendously good at quickly assessing written work, particularly. So we were working with a college on an English GCSE AI tool, and that was trained on the English GCSE curriculum, the specification, exam papers, examiner feedback, marking schemes, etc. The tutors started using it for assessment of student work and were blown away. And what they said was, this is brilliant because we can now set more work because we can assess it more easily. The idea of, I'm sure, going home with 30 essays to mark on a Friday probably isn't your ideal weekend, and probably you're not going to set that every day. The AI can assess and can do it now. And I'm always struck by, when I think back quite a while now to my university days, I'd write an essay, I'd hand it in, I would get my feedback 2-3 weeks later. I didn't care about the feedback then, I just wanted to see the grade. I didn't learn anything from the feedback that was written on there, that the tutor had presumably spent some time reading my work and giving me thoughtful things I could do to improve. I was over that by 3 weeks later. I didn't want to think about it again. If I'd have had that assessment feedback minutes later, or maybe hours if you want the human to make sure, the tutor to cast their eyes on it, that could genuinely make my writing better and the work better. So I'm always struck by that, for myself at least. Leaders, I've touched on some of this stuff. Data and insights is really where it's at here. This is about taking away the admin, but also finding patterns, finding insights. For example, generative AI, if you had a load of tutorial notes about interventions and things that you had done with students over years, whatever you've got, it's better to start now, isn't it? Than if you haven't got enough, it doesn't matter, you can start building it. So you had all this written text, rich written content. You could then, with AI, look at what interventions make a difference with this type of learner, that type of learner, etc. And the AI can look into the tutorial notes and be like, it turns out if you talk about sports at this stage to someone who's done these things before, it seems to make a big difference. It's probably not a very good example, but hopefully the point comes alive. I'm going to jump. Predictive analytics, I must say, this is hard. There's a story, or I read this story about a healthcare example where they were trying to use predictive analytics to work out whether or not, when a pneumonia patient arrives in A&E, should they send them home to recover or should they admit them to hospital to recover. And I'm not a healthcare expert by any means. I understand this is quite a challenging decision on pneumonia because it can go very badly wrong quickly. So they used a predictive model, and the predictive model said to them, you can send asthmatic patients home. They don't have bad outcomes. And when you looked at the data, the reason they don't have bad outcomes apparently is because they're always admitted to hospital, because asthma and pneumonia together is one of the highest risk groups. But of course, the AI's data would have shown very clearly that people with asthma do not have bad outcomes with pneumonia because they're always admitted. So these are some of the examples where the data's wrong. We are kind of not clever enough, not thinking widely enough to do predictive analytics well. So it's hard. There's another challenge for educators, which was a few years ago, there was a press article from the west of England where I think it was schools got into trouble for, in the press at least, for what there was perceived as racial profiling. And this was using predictive analytics to work out which student groups you needed early intervention. And what you tend to see, of course, is that it is the more deprived groups that are going to need earlier intervention. And of course, that in the west of England at least pointed at areas where there was a lot of black and minority ethnic students, and therefore they got sort of into trouble for that. So it's a minefield here really of working out what's good and how do you get to predictive. So don't try and start there is my advice. Retrieval augmented generation. So this is all about, I've touched on it earlier, this is about training an AI model on your data. So you're using kind of the brain of ChatGPT, if you like, or any of the large language models, but ChatGPT, and you're telling it, I want you to only look in this set of data. And that data can be unstructured data, which is words on pages, or structured data, which is databases. This changes everything. Imagine having the power of ChatGPT looking at your stuff. Suddenly there are things you can do which, playing around with ChatGPT as a kind of summarize this meeting notes or write me an email, is a toy compared to what you get into when you start getting into RAG AI. And here are some of the obvious, I think, use cases for schools. And our fascination, by the way, is what next? What else could you do? What really could make the impact? So in here, there's self-assessment. You can use AI to crunch the data and help you draft and write about it. In colleges, they call this the self-assessment review, the SAR process. And I'm always struck by how you've suddenly, for a period of time, and it happens kind of annually, which is another challenge of the process really, but you have to suddenly become a data analyst. So you're staring at spreadsheets and different sets of data, and in a college there might be 8 or 9 different sets of data for each curriculum area: attendance, feedback from lesson observations, student performance, student attendance, and a whole range of other things. You have to look into that, work out what's good, what's not, and then write a report about it. And I'm told many principals have said this to me, that they will sit in on a quality review meeting, as they would call that, and they spend most of the hour trying to understand what the writing means. What is it you're trying to say to me? AI can do the data assessment and pull out what's good and bad instantly on all of those data sets, and it can write that report for you on the things that you need to worry about and not, in a way that is very clear, grammatically correct, and everybody can now understand. We think that will enable people to spend their time in the right way, not looking backwards at data and writing about it, but looking forwards to what are we going to do about it, and therefore driving improvement and delivering better student outcomes. There are other areas here, so staff knowledge assistant, picking on that. If you train an AI, a RAG AI tool, on your policies and procedures, that now means there is a single version of the truth that can answer any question in any language from any context that you choose grounded entirely and exclusively in the policies and procedures of your organisation. That means you can know that staff are empowered with the right information to answer the questions correctly, be that a parent asking something, a student asking something, or indeed the staff member wanting to know something. And it means that your up-to-date policies, your latest updates and changes can instantly be in everybody's hands, so that people are not operating from old, out-of-date policies. It's a tremendously powerful tool. I won't run around all of these. Parent chat is fascinating. So at the moment, schools send, I get end of term reports, a written thing, all about my child's progress. I kind of read it. I might congratulate them or ask them a few questions, my child, or ask a few questions about it. In reality, it's not that useful to me, and it's pretty old-fashioned, isn't it? How about this? We can build a tool right now that can look at live or close to live data on every aspect of your whatever data is collected about the child. It can securely enable that only the parent can talk to their child's data, and it can give you an answer in any way you want. You can ask, how's little Johnny got on in maths this week? You can say, how's his attendance been compared to last year? You can say, what can I do as a parent to help? And the AI can do that anytime, in any language, 24 hours a day. That's the future of parent engagement in children's education. If you would be interested in seeing our tools, we are delighted to run a demo, so you can get in touch with us through loads of different ways. There's a QR code coming up, there's an email address coming up, but also through our website. We'd be delighted to show you some of our tools in action. Knowledge Flow is our platform. Knowledge Flow can include many different AI assistants within it. It's the one-stop shop for your AI strategy, really. It supports your AI strategy because you can put all of your tools, your AI tools, within one place, and it's enterprise grade. And what I mean by enterprise grade is a bit of marketing nonsense in some ways, isn't it? But what we mean is it's private. Your data never leaves your environment, and it's secure. That's authenticated access only, so only your staff that are already authenticated can access it, and it's auditable. That means you can see the decisions when decisions is strong. You can see the advice the AI tool Knowledge Flow has given, and then you can trace that back to decisions that staff members might have made. So all of it gives you the ability to check what's going on. And interestingly, that also gives you huge amounts of insights into how people are using it, and indeed what people are asking about. If they're all asking about one policy area, maybe there's some training needed. And where are there gaps? Where are people asking for questions where there is no answer? There's an example there with some of the different variants of AI assistants that are available within our platforms, and we love to build new things to fix your knowledge flow challenges. So where you have workflows that need some AI brought to them because that can transform them, that's where Knowledge Flow as a platform comes in, because we can build that into it and it becomes your AI strategy. So what should you do? I said there was an additional part to the AI strategy that I thought was important, and this is it. So understanding the technology you have and understanding the technology that's available is one part of the pillar of your AI strategy. But the spotlight approach is what we describe is where you just go through all of the different workflows of your organisation. You don't need to do it all at once. You just begin to pick one. You'll know already what is some of the high pain points and time-consuming workflows in your organisation. Let's get to those first. And what you need to do is to sketch out what does the workflow look like, where is the data, and then you can start to look at where AI can come in and take on some of that work, sometimes all of that work. And AI will bring consistency, and it can speed it all up as well. So potentially you can transform parts of your organisation one at a time. You need to think about prioritising, but initially, as I mentioned, I think you already know your top 2 or 3 that you could go straight after, and then after that maybe you get into prioritising the use cases. I've got a slide next to give you a bit of a thought about how to go about thinking about prioritising them. Encouraging adoption is really important, and sharing best practices amongst your staff, and of course stay safe. So in terms of prioritising, there is these things really. Firstly, tasks with high toil, and what we're really talking about there is it's a lot of admin, reading stuff, drawing stuff together, pulling it together in one place, grabbing data from different sources, trying to find case studies, finding old papers, all of that stuff. AI excels at, is way better than a human. Knowledge tasks that require a level of intelligence. Artificial intelligence is what we're really talking about. It brings a level of intelligence to tasks, so it's really useful if you want to say, what are the insights in this, summarize that, read these 5 documents and give me the the next steps I should think about, or actionable steps that we can take in our school. All that stuff it's brilliant at. If you're looking at workflow, then look at stuff that's repetitive. We are sometimes asked to look at stuff where we can bring AI, because it's a really frustrating task, but it happens once a year for a week, and you the merits of going there is probably not worth the effort that you're going to put into it. It will be in time, but there are bigger prizes right now. You need the data, and think about the return on investment, and that's really if this is just making you a bit happier, that's worth something, isn't it? There's definitely a return on happiness on investment, but really starting to think about where you're going to make the big impact. What workflow could you work on where students will feel it, and you'll get either more time for teachers to spend in front of students, or perhaps you can start to put intervention strategies in place to improve the outcomes for your learners. That's the kind of stuff that we get excited about. I'm going to skip past this, but just to say the DFE's guidance we think is really good. June 2025 it was last updated. I strongly suggest you look at it if you haven't already in your school. It's really good practical stuff that you can get on with, and it obviously gives you some of the government's view on what you are allowed and not allowed to do. So definitely have a look at that. And there is my summary of what I hope we've covered in this. AI is coming, it's here, and it's going to only get bigger. We need to start our journey or continue our journey. And as state schools particularly, I work with independent schools, and they are ahead of the game, and we are once again driving a digital divide and more of a deprivation gap by not getting on with it in state schools. It's frustrating to me. I want all of us to be looking at using AI for the benefit of our students. Free schools are great. Free schools probably are great, but free AI tools are great for creation tasks. So that's what we mean by that is if you say, give me a lesson plan on this, brilliant. You can put that into any tool you like. It's free, why not use it? If you want to create videos to explain things for your class, fantastic. There's free ones in video we use all the time. Fantastic tool. You need to watch out for bias, and most importantly, you need to know where is your data being processed. That doesn't matter if you're asking for a video on the Egyptian pyramids. No matter where the data is, you'll get the video. You can edit it and do what you want with it. RAG AI, you're now experts in retrieval augmented generation, so that opens up the real opportunities, and you need to get on with it. School leaders should plan their approach. What is it, the phrase, the best time to plant a tree is 40 years ago, the second best time is today. So that's kind of my big message really, is we need to get moving. And you should put in place a policy of some sort, however you choose to decide it, or where you choose to write it down. Make sure your staff are clear on it, and understand what they're doing right now. Staff will be using AI. Don't try and make it, we try and encourage the use of AI safely. So it's a wonderful thing. Let's find out what's going on, make it and share that where it's useful. That is me, and the QR code is to our website. So if you would like to, you can go on there and sign up to our newsletter. We do a weekly blog which explores general AI stuff in a friendly, easy to access way. So please do go on there if you would like to. We love to talk about this stuff, so please get in touch, and we'd be delighted to have a chat about where you are, see if we can help. But I'm sure we can offer advice and point you in the right direction, even if we can't help ourselves. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to hopefully speaking to you. Thank you.